It began with a single glance from the god of the dead, and from that moment the world above would never be the same. Before the pomegranate, before the underworld, before the endless winter, there was a girl picking flowers, and in the blink of an eye she vanished. Not stolen by violence, but claimed by something far more terrifying, a love that dared to rewrite fate itself. This is not a tale of right and wrong. It is not a love story, and yet it is. It is a myth that shaped the seasons, tore gods apart, and asked a question as old as time. What happens when love demands everything, even the sun? Now, close your eyes, let the world fade, and drift back to where it all began, in a field of wildflowers, beneath an innocent sky. The girl was light. Her laughter danced on the wind like pollen, soft and untouchable. She walked barefoot through meadows that seemed to grow only for her. Persephone, maiden of spring, daughter of the harvest, child of life itself. She belonged to no one and nothing, save the gentle rhythm of blooming things. And she was watched. Far below, in the quiet and colourless kingdom beneath the earth, a god sat on a throne of shadow. Hades, ruler of the dead, guardian of souls, older than time, and lonelier than silence. The other gods forgot him, feared him, whispered about him, but never visited. He did not laugh, he did not bloom, until he saw her. No one knows how many days he watched, how many nights he stood beneath the soil, looking up toward the pulse of spring. She picked Narcissus, unaware, and somewhere, deep in the hollow of his chest, something shifted. Not hunger, not cruelty, but a longing so vast it cracked open the stillness of death itself. He went to Zeus. This is the part most people forget, Hades asked. In some versions he knelt before his brother. In others he merely spoke, his voice echoing like thunder in a tomb. "Let me have her," he said. "Let her be queen of what lies beneath." Zeus, ever the diplomat of storms and chaos, gave no answer. Or perhaps worse, he gave a nod. The day was bright when it happened. Birds sang. Flowers nodded. Persephone wandered, far from her mother's gaze, chasing the scent of a bloom she couldn't name. Then the earth yawned. A crack in the meadow, sudden and silent. No roar, no fire, just an opening, and from it a chariot of darkness drawn by horses, with eyes like empty moons. She did not scream. Not at first. The myth says he took her, yes, but myths forget to mention the moment before, when she looked down and saw him, when her eyes met his, when for a heartbeat the god of death looked no more terrifying than a ghost who had forgotten how to be seen. Still she vanished. The meadow closed behind her, petals drifting through the air, like nothing had changed, but everything had. Demeter, goddess of the harvest, mother of the maiden, felt it instantly. She searched with hands trembling like dry corn husks, shouting her daughter's name into winds that would not answer. The world dimmed, grain shriveled, rivers slowed. The sun seemed to hang lower in the sky. For the first time in memory, the earth mourned. And Persephone? She fell. Not in terror, not entirely, but into a realm of silence and stillness, into a place where her name had never been spoken, into the arms of the one who had chosen her. Hades did not speak. He showed her halls carved from bone, gardens of asphodel, a throne of onyx beside his own. He gave her nothing, and everything, not gifts but space, to sit, to weep, to wonder. He did not touch her, he did not ask her to smile, he simply waited. And she, Persephone, the bringer of spring, stood in a land where nothing ever grew, and listened to her own heartbeat echo off the stone. Above, Demeter screamed her grief into the roots of the world. Below, Hades watched the girl he had taken and said nothing, and Persephone looked back. Silence has a shape. It hangs in the underworld like mist, soft and close. It drapes over the stone corridors and smooth marble halls. It folds itself around the river Lethe, which flows not with water, but with forgetting. It fills the spaces between words that are never spoken. This is where Persephone lived now. She did not sleep. She did not dream. She wandered, light-footed and uncertain, through a world built not of colour, but of memory and ash. Souls drifted past her, like fallen leaves caught in a current. Not weeping, not screaming, just gone. People who once laughed, once loved, now reduced to echoes. And she wondered, is this all that remains when life ends? Hades watched her from afar. He did not follow her, not closely, but he felt her presence like a change in pressure, like breath in a sealed room. She was something new, something alive, not in body, in will. Her anger was quiet, but it glowed steady and sharp. She had not spoken to him since her arrival. He had offered her a throne beside his own, untouched. He had offered her power, unclaimed. He had offered her food, uneaten. And still she remained. It is said that the dead cannot lie in the underworld. Here truth floats to the surface like oil on water. But Persephone had never been dead, and she carried her truths hidden deep. She'd been taken, yes, but the memory of that moment, the glance, the hesitation, the not quite scream, haunted her more than the abduction itself, because something inside her had not resisted. Something inside her had paused, had wondered, had reached, and that frightened her more than anything. One day she followed a sound, faint, strange, not the moaning of souls or the slow drip of water, but something sharp. Rhythm. Hades alone playing a lyre. His fingers moved with impossible grace across strings made of shadow and silver. The notes were not beautiful. They were honest, jagged with grief, low with longing. She stood at the threshold of the room and did not step in, but she listened. He did not stop. She returned the next day and the next, until finally he spoke. "You are not a prisoner here." His voice was soft, not like thunder, like gravel under bare feet. "You may leave if you wish." She didn't answer, because that wasn't true. The gods had rules, and she had eaten nothing. She had made no vow, but she had crossed a line. Not in body, in thought. She was changing. In the mortal world, her mother had begun to rot the earth with grief. Crops would no longer grow. Forests withered. People begged the gods for mercy, but the gods were silent. Zeus, who had allowed the taking, now feared the cost. And below, Persephone began to speak. Not much, but enough. She asked about the dead, who they were, why they stayed. She asked about judgment, about memory, about what happened to children lost too young. And Hades answered. He never lied. He never tried to soften the truth. He did not pretend his world was gentle, but he offered her understanding, and space and silence, the kind that listens, not the kind that smothers. He asked her nothing, until one day he offered her a seed, a single pomegranate seed dark as blood and heavy in his palm. Not as a trap, as a choice. She held it for a long time. To eat was to stay, to belong, to let go of spring. But to refuse was to return unchanged, to go back to flowers and sunlight, and be only a daughter, never a queen. And in the stillness of the underworld, Persephone, goddess of nothing yet, made her choice. She opened her lips and bit. The seed was bitter. It burst across her tongue like blood and iron, like roots torn from the earth. She swallowed, and with that her fate was no longer hers alone. The underworld stirred. Hades said nothing, but the weight in his eyes changed. Less hope, more finality. He knew what it meant. So did she. To eat in the land of the dead was to bind yourself to it. Even the gods could not undo that bond. And far above, Demeter screamed. It was not the cry of a mother. It was the wail of the world itself. She tore the leaves from trees, drained the rivers into dust, split the clouds open with frost. She had begged Zeus. She had threatened him. And now, with nothing left to lose, she cursed the earth she once fed. No more harvests, no more warmth, no more mercy. Zeus, who had once nodded at Hades in silence, now saw the cost. Mortals were dying, worship was fading, the very balance of Olympus hung by a thread. And so he descended, not to Hades, but to Persephone. She met him with calm. The girl who once gathered flowers now sat in the hall of the dead, with a stillness more powerful than thunder. Her voice did not tremble. I ate the seed. Zeus paused. Then you belong here. She nodded. Partly. And in that moment a compromise was born. Or perhaps a sentence. 6 seeds. 6 months. Half the year in the underworld, half the year above. A cycle, a balance, a cost. And so Persephone returned. The earth opened again. This time, not with violence, but with ceremony. The wind shifted, snow melted, the sky remembered how to be blue. Demeter wept when she saw her daughter, but she did not run to her. She waited, arms outstretched, as if afraid she might vanish again. And Persephone walked to her, not as a child, but as someone reborn. Spring came in waves that year. Flowers bloomed, late but wild. Bees returned, wheat bowled in the fields. Life surged with urgency, as if to make up for time lost. People rejoiced. But even as she laughed beside her mother, Persephone's gaze often drifted toward the horizon, toward the place where the soil was darker, where roots reached deeper, where silence still called her name. Because she missed him, not with the madness of first love, but with the ache of something unresolved. Hades had not stopped her, had not begged her to stay. He had only watched her go, and in that watching had given her something she had never known, the power to choose. And so, when the 6th month ended, she returned, not kidnapped, not dragged. She stepped down into the underworld with her head high and her voice steady. She took the throne beside his, and from that day forward, she was no longer just the maiden of spring. She was queen of death and rebirth, of light and shadow, of a world that had to break just a little in order to change. And the world did change. It learned to breathe in seasons, to live and die in rhythm, to bloom and to let go. Because once, long ago, a god fell in love with a girl who was never meant to stay. And she stayed anyway, not for him, not even for love, but for herself.